I now call on Deputy McCarthy to
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle.
guide the debate.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. I'm not being pedantic, but I counted 16 speakers here this morning, and I want to begin by acknowledging, Ceann Comhairle, the staff of the House, yourself and your own office for allowing me to bring forward this momentous piece of legislation. I deeply, deeply appreciate that. There have been outstanding contributions from all sides of the House since we kicked off at 10:30. But can I just begin by saying that the profession of politics and the body politic comes in for constant scrutiny, and unfortunately, on a lot of occasions, a lot of the comment can be quite negative and can be anything but constructive. Sometimes I think there may be practitioners who have brought that upon the system itself, but by and large, we've had about 1,200 TDs since the foundation of the state. TDs, I'm not referring to members of local authorities or members of Shannon Éireann. And the vast majority of those men and women work very, very diligently for the people that they represent. And we should never lose sight of why we're in here. We're in here to represent our constituents and our people. And today was a very, very fine example of that. And I want to acknowledge, Ceann Comhairle, your role in allowing today's debate to take place. None of us should ever apologise for being a conduit between what's out there and our constituency. And that's the genesis of this issue for me. I have met too many parents who have found it extremely frustrating that when their children become adults, there's a cliff face and there is no continuity of services for their children who have autism. And that's why it specifically relates to adults with autism. Can I acknowledge, before I go any further also, the fact that political reform allows us to be here today, Ceann Comhairle. The extra sittings and the manner in which we have witnessed collegiality around a very, very significant issue this morning. And I think, I want to paraphrase Deputy Humphreys, Minister, you yourself have reacted, I think, very humanely to this issue, and you have reacted magnanimously. You didn't get involved in a political sideshow or kicking. You have responded to this legislation in a manner that is heartening for me, and heartening particularly for the families of people who have children and adults and whatever age they might be with autism. And your endorsement of this legislation is significant and it is historical. And I want to put in the record of this House my own personal gratitude to you, Minister, for taking the bill yourself and for reacting in the manner in which you did, let it be the personal experience, your medical background or your political duties. It is hugely heartening for myself, but more so for the families of children with disabilities. One of the aspects of this legislation, and has been touched on, is the interdepartmental aspect to it. That is absolutely critical. We should never view this issue as being solely an issue for the Minister for Health or the HSE, because people with autism are like everybody else. They're going to access services, be education, or housing, or jobs, and that's why it is critical that we emphasise the interdepartmental aspect to this legislation. Obviously enough, the Department of Health will be the main driver in all of that, but we have to acknowledge the wider aspect to it. Deputy Craydon made a very interesting point earlier when he referred to the case where the lady, the mother of a person with autism, had to take a case to the Employment Equality Tribunals. But it wasn't at that juncture that the issue was. It was the fact that the local authority had discriminated against that family, against that mother and her child. And that was the kernel of that story. And that is why we're here today, to require government to introduce a strategy so that no other family will ever have to have recourse to an organ of the state to fight for what is everybody else's right. And we should never deny that to anybody else. And by enacting this legislation, we make a very clear statement going forward that that case should never again, that particular situation should never again arise. I want to acknowledge the contributions from the spokespersons from the opposition parties, from the technical group, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin. I want to also acknowledge the very poignant and personal contributions made by members here today in relation to their own personal experiences. Because at the end of the day, we come here as legislators, but we're all human beings. We're all part of families. We all live in communities. None of us are unaffected by what goes on around us, despite what some element of commentariat might like others to believe. And by bringing that with us today, I think we've improved the quality of debate. I hope, as I said in my outing, in my earlier contribution, that every journey begins with a small step. And every time you set sail, there's always a port, there's always a journey. Today is the first but significant step in that journey. And I look forward to the legislative process, I look forward to the committee stage, and I look forward to engagement with other people in ensuring that at the end of the day, that we produced robust and strong legislation that vindicates the rights of people, that vindicates the rights of adults who have autism. Many points have been made, and I'm not going to go over them or labour them, but I just wanted to share with the House. I got a card this morning from a young man who's in the gallery, 20-year-old Conor Deeney from Donegal. And he says in his note, "Thank you for helping all the people with autism. Love from Conor Deeney." And there's a beautiful quote on the front of this, a Chinese saying that says, "To get through the hardest journey, we need to take only one step at a time, but we must keep on stepping." So I look forward to the rest of this journey, and I acknowledge the commitment and the endorsement by Minister Riley, and I thank all sides of the House.
Thank you, Deputy. I now put the question that the bill be now read a second time. Is that agreed? Agreed. As this is a private member's bill, it must, under Standing Order 118, be referred to a select or special committee. I'd ask the Deputy to move the motion of referral, and I move that the bill be referred to the Select Subcommittee on Health pursuant to Standing Orders 82A and 118 of the Standing Orders relative to public business. That agreed? Agreed. And all our atlog the Adoa Clug, they march. Thank you.